Right. Well, thank you very much for the invite to today's talks, which I've very much enjoyed. I'm going to just describe an approach I've been working on for the last 6 months at John Moores University. So it's relatively new.
Sorry, Philip, can I just jump in there
Yeah.
quickly? I can't see your presentation. I can still see your kind of the slides down the side.
Okay, I can address that. I'll exit. Sorry, apologies.
That's okay.
You'd think I'd be familiar with this technology right now.
Happens to everyone, don't worry.
Okay, so I'm going to keep talking while my PowerPoint reopens because it's I'm working on an exceedingly slow computer today at home. The work I want to talk about just addresses a couple of, like, I suppose, eternal truths, things that remain unchanged since we entered into this era of generative AI, and that is the definition of cheating hasn't changed. We still expect students to abide by the permissions that we set for our assignments. Apologies, I'm trying to do two things at once here. I'm almost back with you.
That's okay.
Thank you for your forbearance. You probably heard the doorbell going in the background as well, so when it rains, it does indeed pour. Right, okay. Yeah, so just thinking about things that haven't changed. The first one of those which I mentioned was that the definition of cheating hasn't changed. And the second thing is that we still endeavour to set assignments that give opportunities for authentic assessment that foster deep learning. And Phil, can you confirm my slides are now visible?
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So, for example, University, Liverpool John Moores University signed up to the United Kingdom's Quality Assurance Agency academic impropriety chart. It hasn't changed in the last 3 years. And what I found interesting in respect of authentic assessment as well was a previous presentation in this series by Zaid Mahmood from Kent Union talked about how students viewed online assessment as providing opportunities for more authentic type modes of learning, and we've talked a bit about those today. The third fundamental thing, which I think still applies, is something I'm going to revisit in a moment, but I just want to go back 6 months to when I guess we were deliberating over our response to AI for the forthcoming academic year. I mean, the challenge, obviously generic across the disciplines, is that students can submit work which I guess would qualify as unauthorized content generation using the European Network for Academic Integrity's definition. But it was interesting seeing Nicholas's presentation that I think within each of the disciplines there are specific challenges, and it was quite remarkable seeing the range of potential AI tools that students might use in Nicholas's discipline. So we very much took our cue from what other researchers were saying at the time, interested in the work of Lodge from Australia about how the future might require us to embrace AI and rethink assessment, starting from a blank slate, I suppose. And I think that's very much the conclusion we drew, and one which was supported when the Russell Group presented their principles on the use of generative AI, which was very much around encouraging ethical and responsible use of artificial intelligence, ensuring equity of opportunity as well. Again, something that's been touched on today. A colleague from our learning development unit within John Moores University pointed out some guidance that had been developed at Monash University, and it provided 4 different routes for tutors to consider when establishing permissions around AI. And the first one was that the most prohibitive was that the use of AI was not allowed. Second one was most permissive, that you could use any AI tool you wished to accomplish the task. And then the third and fourth routes were a bit more nuanced. Perhaps there was a stipulation about which AI tool could be used, or maybe perhaps indicating a specific way in which you might use a tool. We've talked already about how you might generate draft content using a generative AI tool and then critically analyze it, for example. So I considered this to be a very sound and kind of intuitive approach, and I was thinking about how best to convey it to colleagues and to students. So I used the third fundamental thing that applies as time goes by, and that's the use of metaphor as a powerful means to convince people of a new idea or to embed a new idea. And I've been very much taken by the work of Fyodor Brodowski. This was a paper they published, or an article they published about 10 years ago now. It was much more sophisticated than this simple summary suggests, but essentially by presenting crime as either a beast or a virus and categorizing it in those two ways, the response of people altered. So when crime was presented as a beast, they favoured more enforcement measures, such as increased budgets for policing, for example. But when presented as a virus, as respondents were more sympathetic and were more likely to suggest reform type measures, such as increased spending on social projects, for example. So it was about developing a metaphor which could be used to convey the Monash guidance. And incidentally, the Monash guidance is available on a Creative Commons license internationally. So the metaphor, it kind of like spelled itself out, really, because what we're trying to do, of course, is communicate AI permissions for assessments. So we chose a metaphor around a compass, where each of the cardinal points on the compass represents one of the 4 pathways established by Monash. So north is no AI tools may be used, east is every AI tool may be used, and then the south and west directions represent the more nuanced aspects, some AI tools or different ways. And interestingly, Monash have actually combined these 2 pathways into a single kind of intermediate combined path, although I'm quite happy to keep them distinct to maintain this overall compass approach. So this is the model that's been shared with the Faculty of Science, and we also include guidance to students as well as staff. In this excerpt, you can see the guidance that students are given in respect of acknowledging AI use. And one thing that's different from a Monash guidance is, whereas we have copied their approach to acknowledging AI use using the kind of which, what, when, how type model, we also insist on students giving a null response in respect of acknowledgements. So if they haven't used AI tools in the production of their work, then we'd like them to acknowledge their non-use in their work as well. So the development took place through consultations with all the key stakeholders, as you would expect. I got approval from my faculty PVC for this initiative to be introduced within the Faculty of Science. Our corporate comms department kindly developed websites in support of this initiative. That they include some copy to clipboard functionality, which enables these like key passages of text to be copied from that website to where it's required. I've shared it within the Associate Dean network at my university, and certainly one of the faculty has also adopted this approach as well. And what we do need to develop, though, John Moores, is more robust guidance to students about the use of AI. I'm going to survey students in spring. As I said, this is quite a new project, relatively new, so it'll be interesting to see how aware students are of this work from the results of that survey. To finish then, just some reflections. Ideally, we'd want these directions to be better embedded within our assignment briefs in our information, perhaps through some functionality within our virtual learning environment, which happens to be Canvas. That would require a whole institution approach, which we don't currently have. As I say, this Compass approach is very much a faculty initiative. It does challenge some long-standing assessment modes. So, for example, if you are allowed to use the internet in an open book assessment, but there's a restriction on your use of AI, then it's not closed book, it's not open book, it's kind of like an ajar book, and then there's questions about how you confirm that permission has been obeyed. We work in a faculty with a lot of professionally accredited programs. So there is still going to be a role for invigilated in-person assessment. And in fact, in Lodge's article, he concedes that will probably remain as a long-term approach to assessment within higher education. I think everything I hear about suggests that the detection of artificial intelligence use within the assessment product by reviewing students' work, kind of like the Turnitin type approach, feels like a dead end. And I think that's recently been confirmed by JISC's analysis of various tools. But the analysis of the assessment process, and I guess this is what alludes to what Hazel was talking about in the first talk. When you've got a small group, it's quite easy to keep tabs on that. So I think with larger student groups, when you want to understand the provenance of the work they're submitting and developing, you'd probably need some technological support to achieve that. But that certainly seems a more attractive route at this stage. So got there. Woo! Thank you for your for listening today, and if there's time, happy to receive questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We did get there, and you were still only 1 minute over with all of those kind of things there. So good work. We do have a couple of questions, but if it's okay, I'm going to kind of take a bit of a liberty and ask the first one, if that's okay. So with regards to the kind of the acknowledgement of AI, you were talking about the different points in the compass. How did you go about kind of enforcing that, where you would say that no AI is allowed? I mean, how, or if students didn't acknowledge in their assignments, I'm guessing that's how you'd ask them to do it. How would that affect it? Because I'm imagining that lots of students, they wouldn't put that acknowledgement in there, maybe, or it's whether you found that, or whether you found that all students did, or I just thought that was interesting.
We're still obviously in the middle of this project, and compliance is mixed. It has to be said. But I think what we've established is that there is this need for this technological solution to examining the assessment process. We have explored perhaps adopting Cadmus, which you may be familiar with, which kind of like effectively acts as a light touch proctoring solution, and basically provides the academic with information on the provenance of students' work. Was it pasted in en masse, or was it pasted in, paraphrased, or typed in diligently word by word? So there's definitely a need for some kind of light touch solution that gives you some confidence that what the student has submitted is not just copied and pasted. But of course, it comes down to assessment design and ensuring that the assessment design ultimately doesn't give an unfair advantage to students who are using AI. If an assessment design gives a fair advantage to students using AI, well, that's the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We do have a couple other questions in the Q&A, but if you could have a look at those, that would be really helpful. So I think if we can move on now to the...
Yeah. Well, I've got questions about how to use Teams appropriately, so I look forward to those being answered. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.